Welcome to the 7th annual Studio Steele podcast.
Woo!
Coming not live to you from Steele Heights
Baptist Church. Hey!
What an introduction. That sounded grand.
That sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm. So here we are again.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about time.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think that it is good in sort of like a lamb stew.
Yep. It's a great spice.
It's
Not used too
It's
often.
an underrated spice.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for coming to this week's episode of the Studio Steele podcast.
See you next week.
No! No, not THYME.
The other time. The one that they probably thought we were talking about in the first place.
Oh boy. Maybe we should start like a cooking podcast.
Could you imagine?
After that,
I am so down for a cooking podcast.
Step 1, take it out of the package. Step 2, put it in the microwave.
Oh, I would have done it wrong.
Oh, well.
That's what we're having.
This is why you need a Studio Steele cooking podcast. So if you have recipes that you would like to see us cook, just put it in the comment section.
We may cook it
below.
We may not, but we may cook it.
Anything is possible, and I guess anything is not possible, also as well too.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this week we're going to be talking about time. We were looking back at the other podcasts we've been doing, and we realized there's a lot of stuff that we've ended up throwing at you guys. We talked about the importance of reading the Bible, asking questions about the Bible, going to church and being able to have a good community behind it, getting involved in small groups and like individual mentorship relations, serving, ton of stuff. Yeah. And in reality, each one of those things takes time, depending on how you end up doing it.
Yep.
So the question we were wondering is like, how do we look at all of these things that we've been talking about and do it practically with the time we're given?
Yeah, because the reality is that we only have so much time, and it's not like you can, gain more time or less time or anything. I mean, time just is, right? Like Ryan has the same amount of time to use that I have, that world leaders have, that billionaires have, right? We all have the same amount of time to use, and how do you use it, right? So that's the question. And there are a lot of techniques and tips for how to use time effectively. And I mean, that's really the goal, is to be effective with your time. And so that's not to say that, everything that we've talked about, you have to do in one day or even 1 week, right? And so it becomes a matter of taking the time that you have and looking at it and being effective with it.
Yeah. So what we're going to be doing today is talking through just a few of these tips and tricks of how to better manage time, what you can do to be able to do all of these different things in a realistic way. These things might not work for you. Everyone kind of is different. Everyone's able to... Yeah. Some people manage things better if they have like a schedule. Some people do it a different way.
Yeah.
But these are some things that we ourselves have done, and these are things that we know work, at least to us. So we thought we would share.
Yeah, and to that end, it's not universal. Yeah. Right? Like different things are going to work for different people, and also at different stages of life.
Yeah.
You guys, students, have the benefit of, perhaps, for the lack of a better term, more free time, or maybe it's just the reality that typically students have like more free time. But that doesn't mean that you can't put these principles into practice. We're not saying that you have to have a routine, exactly like Ryan and I do, or, exactly like the top 50 CEOs of the wealthiest companies, you don't need to be that regimented and that strict about it. But if you start to think about how you can manage your time effectively, you're also kind of projecting yourself and setting yourself up to be more successful as an adult.
Yeah.
And adulting is fun, but in many respects, like, adulting ain't easy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can set yourself up for that sooner, such a better time.
Yeah.
Being an adult.
So I think that one of the first things that you can do is this thing called time blocking, and I think Ben can speak to this a little bit more. But it's this concept of looking at the amount of time that you have in a given week, a given day, kind of choose maybe a month, choose a set amount of time, and you're taking a look at how much time you are currently devoting to sleeping, to eating, to going to school, to video games, to whatever it may be. You're looking at what you're currently spending your time on and being able to evaluate that.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, we use the term blocking because what you do is you take your week, your day, your month, however you're going to break it down. Probably, like, but best idea is probably do a week.
Mm-hmm.
And to just sort of like, okay, like, and you take every chunk of time that is allocated and you put it into the schedule, and you say, like Ryan said, like, I'm going to school from this time to this time. I have chores from this time to this time. I have homework from this time to this time, and it doesn't matter what it is or where it is. You put it in there and you schedule it. You say it's like, I do homework from 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock, if that's the case. But you start to put all of these blocks in places that is scheduled, that is dedicated, and then you can start to see where you have time that isn't dedicated, that isn't blocked. And what you can do with that time then is it helps you kind of like, well, should I dedicate more time to something else, or is there something that I can actually put in there that is going to help me and benefit me?
Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of these spaces, these gaps people don't often think about. Like, when you think about going to school, you're like, okay, maybe I'm going from this time to this time. But you don't think about, like, the half an hour you might have on the bus ride going in.
Mm-hmm.
There are these things like we've called, like, the gaps that we currently have that we don't think about. And these are areas where you can find a way to devote another aspect in. Maybe this is a time where you're able to do some more homework on the way into school. Maybe it's time to study for a test. I think that on my way into work is a great time for me to listen to, like, an audiobook or listen to, like, an audio recording of the Bible. Like, it's some of these things you often don't think about time you have that you actually do.
So, Bill Gates, I think no longer the richest man in the world.
I think someone passed him.
I think it was Jeff Bezos of Amazon.
Classic.
But, Bill Gates up there got a lot, mucho dinero, as they say. And Bill Gates is notorious for, like, coveting his time. Like, he schedules it. He everything is planned out for him. And actually, taking a look at some of his principles in his time management are great things to look at. And he actually uses this principle of, like, finding the gaps in his time. And so what he'll do is he'll carry around, like, he loves reading. He'll carry around, like, a book with him at all the time. If he has, like, 5 minutes before a meeting, he'll sit down and he'll read more of that book, right? And like for me, you had touched on this, but I used to have a 45-minute commute into work, and then I would have a 45-minute commute back out. I had an hour and a half on the road of just like, there's a deer, there's a bird, there's a car, of just driving. And for me, that became like, I crushed so many audiobooks, so many podcasts, the audio Bible. If there was like, man, like, this artist came out with a new album, that was perfect time to kind of, like, digest, like, music and media and all that kind of stuff. So, where are these times that, maybe if you're time blocking, you're like, well, my commute to school is a half an hour, on the bus or something like that. And it's just sort of like, are there these things that you can do within that time? And that's sort of like overlapping.
Yeah.
You have to commute and travel, but is there a way that you can make that travel even more effective?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that definitely plays into these, like, arenas of faith. Like, we've been talking to you guys about, like, reading your Bible, going to youth group, doing small groups and stuff like that. And like you said before, all these things take time. every single one, right? So like another thing that you can do, or like a way to like overlap your time, is like something like small group.
Yeah.
Like when we come to youth group, um, you are coming here and we are diving into scripture. We're looking at God's word, right? We're asking questions. We're wrestling with faith. We're getting you guys to think through things. A lot of times, when we're studying this stuff, like Ryan and I are thinking about this stuff and learning things too, right? So there's a way to kind of like overlap like 3 of the things that we talked about.
Yeah.
So try and find some ways that you can overlap time too.
Yeah. I think also while you're looking at these blocks of time that you have, it's a good time to look to see what things you're currently devoting time to that could be better used somewhere else. Now, I'm not saying you should try and like cut back on hours of sleep because those are important,
right.
Or you should just stop going to school or anything along those lines. But I know for myself, like one aspect that I always can cut back is my whole social media time that I'm on. If I don't spend some intentional time, like I'm only going to have an hour on social media or something, I could just start scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and I'll be on Instagram for an hour, and then once that's done, I'll turn over, go to Facebook, and I'll keep doing that cycle. If you can realize that maybe you spend 3 hours doing social media or something along those lines, maybe consider cutting that back to an hour and using those extra 2 hours to do something else, something that might help you be more productive, something that might help you grow in your faith, trying to be able to reorganize.
And that's kind of where the time blocking comes in handy. It almost becomes like a time budget. You're taking this inventory of all your time, and maybe sometimes you get surprised. You're like, wow, I spent 4 hours playing Fortnite or on Xbox or PlayStation, or something that, like, wow, like maybe I can cut that in half to 2 or something like that, right? Like monetarily, fiscally, when you use a budget, you allocate where all of your money is going, and often is the case, and almost all the time is the case, that when you are using a budget, it actually frees up your money, because like what is getting spent on like bills and household expenses and gas, but you also know kind of like where money is being spent on like donuts or coffee or going out to the movies or something like that, right? Like all those things that like aren't necessary to your survival but entertaining, right? So the same is true of like a time budget, right? Like you should be getting 8 hours of sleep. You need to be eating at meals. You need to be going to school, right? You don't need to play Xbox or watch movies or stuff like that. Those are great. Free time is an important time because you need these times of rest, right? But the whole thing about time, what we're trying to get you to do is recognize balance in there. And you know what? You guys are young and like, you have more free time, but consider that balance, right? I, for one, love watching movies and television. It's sort of my way to just sort of like turn it all off at the end of the day. You don't have to think. It just, there's this great movie or this great documentary and this great funny show, and it's just sort of like it's a release, right? And I love it. But this sort of comes after, like going to work and like being a dad and being a husband and putting your kid to bed and making supper and all of that. And so it's like, we were talking about this earlier, sort of like with the amount of time that you talk about TV, like you sort of give this impression that you're binge watching something. It's like, I'm like, I don't have time to binge watch stuff, but I do have time in my day to watch stuff. But it's allocated, and I know that it's free time and it's there for me to use after I've done all these really important things that I need to do in my life, right? So I think it's the benefit of time blocking. So you get to see where your time is or where it's going or where too much of it is being spent. So it's kind of like a budget, and you guys can budget your time too to get the most out of it.
And I think you hit on a really important note, is that rest and that free time is equally as important. There's a priority, and you need to be able to do those things, like those necessary tasks before you just spend time on an Xbox or doing
Right.
sports or whatever. But having that rest is also key. We're not sitting here telling everyone to, find any free time you have, throw it out the window, replace it with Bible reading, replace it with schoolwork, replace it with whatever. Because if you do that and you don't have this time for rest, you're going to burn out quickly.
Yeah.
You're going to run yourself dry and you're not going to be fulfilled in what you're doing. So I think that while you're doing these time blockings, while you're looking at these areas that you have open in your week, schedule out some time to have just some rest and some free time.
And what that looks like for you, right? Like, if that is like, zoning out on Xbox, or, reading a good book, or watching a movie, or going for a walk, or hanging out with friends, make sure that's in there, because I think that's also important to God.
Yeah.
You talk about rest, and like like the very first thing.
Yeah.
Like, God's doing this hard work, he's creating, and it's like the Bible is like explicitly clear that on the seventh day God rested. And then God made it like a command that we experience cycles of rest. And I mean, like, when you're working, like, sometimes you're going hard for a little while, and you just like, you need that time, you need that rest, you need that break from work. That is something that is God given to us, and that I think we have to honor.
Right.
So get that in your schedule, and you can kind of build that into a cycle. I think the biblical recommendation is, you work for 6 days, you take 1 day off, right? So, that cycle might look different for you, but there's kind of like the biblical mandate there. But you start to get into like cycles and rhythms and routines, and that's going to make all of this easier for you.
Because when you look at this idea of time blocking, this idea of scheduling out your time, and it's going to be difficult to start off with. It's going to be difficult to put down the social media for a bit and be able to start reading the Bible, or to do your homework earlier so you have some more free time. It's going to be harder, but if you make a routine out of it, if you consistently work through it on a weekly basis, if you keep trying to prioritize this, you're going to find that it no longer feels like a chore, like it feels like it's a difficult thing. Instead, it's going to feel like second nature. You're going to start to be like, oh yeah, I shouldn't be on here for too long. I'm going to put this down. I'm going to try and...
It's Thursday. This is what I do on Thursday. Okay, I have time to watch this or play this,
right?
Because you've worked it into this kind of this ebb and flow of your routine, So, I think that's so take a look at your time.
Yeah.
Plot it out. Analyze it.
Yeah.
Figure out if there's things that need to shift, things that need to go. Be intentional about it. So you can't say, well, here's my gap. I'm going to read my Bible during this time. Something like that. And then be intentional. You can also find the gaps, right? Like where you can overlap time to make it even more effective. And then when you've done all that, live it out and make it a routine. Is that a thing?
I think so.
Did I forget something?
I think that's it. And there are other ways to manage your time. You literally one Googled search, you'll find 27 professionals who are talking about how to manage your time and what to do. Here's more tips and tricks. Find what works for you. Find the best way that you can manage your time for yourself so that you can feel more productive, so that you can engage with your faith. And once you do that, it will come easier to you.
I guess something that I think we forgot to mention last week is that we are looking for your questions.
Right.
Because we have one more in this How to Explore Your Faith series.
Yeah.
And then what we're interested in is kind of your questions, or like frequently asked questions about the Christian faith that Ryan and I can kind of tackle and explore and perhaps give some clarity on. Ryan and I have fun talking about faith. We would love to be doing this with you guys in person in small group, and very thankful that we're meeting with you guys on our Zoom small groups, so we can continue to do that. But if you guys have like specific questions that you're just not getting answered right now, send it our way. You can email me, ben@shbc.ca. Hey, even Ryan has one, office@shbc.ca.
Yeah.
If you want to send it to Ryan, I don't know. DM, there's comments in
On the Instagram page.
in the YouTube.
No comments to that,
Facebook, whatever you got to do, mail it.
They might not get to us that quickly, but if you want to mail it, go for it.
I don't know the address off the top of my head. I don't even know my own postal code off the top of my head.
I think I just learned my. I've been in the same house for like 5 years.
5Y. I think it's like 3Y3.
Watch that not be right.
I know.
Entirely
like
wrong.
that's. I'll have to put that in the comments or something like that. Send me mail. I'm like, I don't know.
Just random things.
Send me checks. What?
Don't send us checks. There's a whole issue with that.
No,
we don't want
we
to
can.
do, no.
We know maybe that's one we can cover is like televangelism.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah. Anything you have questions
Yeah.
for, feel free to send it in.
Yeah, just make sure that when you send in your questions, send us a certified check for $24.99. And no, I'm just kidding. Send us your questions. We want your questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Gotta have bloops. Give me my bloops.
Bloops. Give me my bloops.
Yeah, I mean that's. I wish you were more funny.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do they probably.
Kind
Let's
of.
be real.
Yeah.
Everyone just Ryan, be funnier.
Yeah. Did you get enough hair swoops in? No, just
Physically?
just like you're tall and lanky.
Keep thinking about funny things to say.
Wonder how that sounds on the microphone.
Just
Yeah.
the goal is to be lankier. But it's so much shorter now. I can't like. It just kind of like falls. You know.
Did you get a COVID cut?
Yeah.
Well, wait, did Hannah do it?
No, Madre.
Oh, Madre. That's a COVID cut. That's. How will you achieve that goal?
Arm stretching. We ask the real questions here.
We'll get to the truth, no matter what. Here on the Studio Steele Journalistic Podcast. Gotta have my bloops, man.
Gotta have my bloops.
Give me my bloops.
It sounds like a squid.
I have to sift through all of this, right?
You're welcome.